Thank you very much for clicking on today's video. In this one, we are getting ready to go to our very first race with the new Warrior Dirt Late model. We're going up to I-75 in a few days for a Southern All-Star Series race. And yeah, we're gonna throw our hat in the ring and see how it goes. Not really sure what to expect, but there's a lot that has to get done before we can go to the racetrack. So let's get to work. What kind of stands?
Chassis stand for the lift.
Nice. So we can go from the lift to a stand, basically.
Yep.
A little bit easier than we currently do.
Yep.
What are you doing, Dad?
I am looking at spark plugs.
What are you looking for?
Well, I'm looking for a couple of things. The first thing I'm looking for is color. And you can see this one is chalky.
Yeah, it looks kind of like powdery.
Yeah, which I like. It's a light gray, almost tend into brown. The other thing you look for is any little pieces of material that may be stuck on the electrode, which is a little part in the middle. That would indicate piston material, maybe, which that would be a bad thing.
That would be a bad thing.
Yep. And it's interesting because you do have to look at them in the light. Because if you looked at them just regular here, my first thought in the dark was, oh, they're fat, they're rich. But the more I look at it here, the less I think so.
How would you be able to tell if they're rich or if they're fat?
The color's going to be darker and tend towards black. So if it's black, that means it's not burning all the fuel and it's rich. This is a nice chalky dry color, which tells me it's using most of the fuel, and I don't see any little speckles or anything that says, oh, that's a piece of piston material or whatever.
And there's no like metallic-y or like chromey looking.
Now this one's a little wet. Now you got to be a little careful how you read plugs, and the drag race guys were really good at it. But what happens with engines like we run is that in order to get a good read on the plug, that was a little damp too, you really want to get it from full throttle to just shut off. And so with this car, we've run the engine since it was on the track. Now we did check the spark plug when we were at Cherokee.
Yep.
We pulled the plug, and it looked sort of like number one here. It was nice, it was dry, it was a nice chalky color, looked really good. But now you've taken the car to the wash bay, you've run it, you've idled it around.
Yeah, we've idled it quite a bit.
And you've idled it to get any water residue out of it once you wash it. Oops. Right?
Yep.
So you get kind of a misread when you do that.
Right.
And so, but they all look pretty good and clean. The other thing I look at when you think about, what you're thinking about here is mixture, air-fuel mixture ratio. You're also thinking about timing to make sure you don't have something that detonates. Detonate would give you a little bit of maybe material from the piston on there. And the other thing I look at is the exhaust pipe. It's where it's at as it comes out. And I like to see kind of a light brown to gray chalky color and have it be fairly dry, which this one is. And you can see, if you look up right on that edge, That's chalky. It's dry. You can see a little leakage on it there. And we'll see what the other side looks like too. This one's the same. So you can look up in there and see how that looks. The other thing that can affect it is your heat range.
Your heat range?
Yeah, the spark plug has a heat range depending on its operating temperature that it's going to operate on. And we can go back to the plug and look. The length of that porcelain and the electrode, which is the piece in the center that sparks, and then how much porcelain's down in here as it goes, all affects the temperature, the running temperature of the spark plug. So you can have what they call hotter plugs and colder plugs. Last year we went up a little bit on fuel to richen it because I could kind of hear a little high-speed crackle. It sounded like it was not a misfire, but it sounded lean. They'll crackle a little if they're lean. And I put a colder plug in it, and that seemed to do the job. And that's what we've been running now. So
How long do they last?
the spark plugs still
Yeah.
last pretty long. Actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't have like an issue.
Yeah.
So,
I
like,
don't
we don't
know.
need to replace them.
I don't worry about life in them.
Okay.
Yeah. You probably, yeah. I mean, I change them on a semi-regular basis just because.
Yeah.
you
Okay.
know, more than anything else.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Pay
Cool.
attention to the gap, which is the,
Yeah, the gap between the.
the gap between the electrode and this probe that comes off the
Yeah, because you
side.
want to make sure, like, if you drop it or something, it doesn't get
Yeah.
damaged.
And most good plugs, they're going to come with a plastic sleeve.
Okay.
So you should always check.
All right. I think that's good. Did a little video on this last week or a couple weeks ago or something like that, but right now, in case you're wondering what we're doing here, we're just going through and doing kind of a visual inspection and then checking our valve lash with our feeler gauge. Everything is cold right now. Our cold number from the engine builder that we're looking for is around 10. So we ran them at 10 before the engine went in the car, and then we also ran the valves hot, and they grew to between 14 to 16 thousandths of an inch, which was expected, and that's right where we wanted to be. So we're happy at 10 right now. So I'm going to go through and make sure every single one is still around 10, 9, 10, 11, something like that. And then I'm also just doing a visual inspection, looking in here. One of the first things that Dad ever taught me as a kid, even if you don't know exactly what you're looking at, a lot of times you can still see if something is wrong. You know, you can see if something is obviously wrong. You know, if one of these rocker arms had a crack in it, or also these rollers, they're hardened so they can get a crack. Dad has seen that before, he said. So we just want to go through and just look at everything and make sure there's nothing that stands out as being, you know, obviously wrong. And if I ever have a question about that kind of thing, I always go to Dad and ask him, even if it might seem to some people like a stupid question. I'd rather check than leave it unnoticed and then have a problem. So anyway, yeah, going through visual inspection, and then I'll get everything cleaned, clean the valve covers, clean the gaskets, make sure everything looks good, and then we will go from there. Dad is working on the carburetor. Dad and Fletch actually just went to call Willys. This is a Willys Super Bowl carburetor here on the bench. That's what we've been running with the Steel Block Super. Been really happy with it. But they're just going to call, ask a few questions. Fletcher's also making chassis stands today, so that we can go from the lift to a couple of chassis stands when we're here in the shop like this for a week or so. And yeah, I'm running the valves cold, checking all that stuff. We also inspected the spark plugs. I think you probably saw a little bit of that. So just some like routine maintenance, checkups, things like that before we go racing at I-75. All right, so real quick here, we are making a spark plug change. We are going from, we did have 10s in it, and we're going down to a, you can see it right there, a 9. These are NGK 9s. This was after our talk with the carburetor builder. They recommended going to a slightly hotter plug. The engine builder even goes down to like a 7, which we're not going to go quite that hot with this, so we're going to go down to a 9, and yeah, give it a little bit of a hotter plug and try to get rid of some of that kind of like bogginess that this SB2 will have if it sits idling, and these will run a little bit hotter. So putting these in right now, a little bit of copper anti-seize on them, and they'll go in. Checking them with our little gauge here. Kind of a cool little tool that I had never really used before, so Dad was showing me how to use that. Pretty cool.
Happy Friday morning. Making a kind of short notice run to Charlotte to pick up some tires. Cab is full of tires, so got oil filters done first, then tires. Got some valve cover gaskets for our SB2. Now I got rivets to get. We'll be on the road.
All right, it's Tuesday morning. We leave for I-75 on Thursday morning. Just picked up a drum of fuel. We run the VP Blue 112. It's actually a drag racing fuel in our car, so we just picked that up. Getting some fuel for the pickup truck. Sold the laser drive shaft yesterday, so we're gonna drop that off at the post office and get back to the shop today as final prep. And then all that we have to do tomorrow is load up and make sure we're organized, and then Thursday morning we can hit it. So anyway, figured I'd show you a little bit of a check-in. Race car is strapped. There's a little look, kind of our strap setup. Got some tires in here, a little bit more loading to do, more tires. Got to break down the winch, get that all done. Yeah, there it is in the box. We'll go around the back, show you what the backside looks like. There's the back of the car. We got a Hubco lift underneath. Just barely fits inside. Thank you very much for watching today's video. We are all loaded up, about to shut the door, and then tomorrow morning we will hit the road bright and early. We're going to be stopping at the chassis builder's shop to do a little bit of work on our way to the racetrack. And yeah, hopefully it goes well. But thank you for watching today's video. By the time you're seeing this, we'll probably have already raced, so make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel so that you don't miss the next video, which will be the I-75 race video. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. Make sure to hit the like button. It really does help us out. We're trying to grow this channel, so it makes a big impact. Every single like counts. And make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, like I said. If you want to help support the team, buy a tire, something like that, check out our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/FletcherWolfRacing. And with all that being said, we will see you guys at the racetrack.